Well, let's break down the fights. We'll start with the lightweight fight. To me, important fight in the lightweight rankings. BJ Penn just lost, so arguably he's not number one in the world anymore. Who is number one? Is it Frank Edgar? Is it IOLE? Is it someone we haven't even talked about? But IOLE has a chance here to get a big win over an American on foreign soil. It's intriguing. I mean, generally the Japanese would. I'm really shocked that they allowed IOLE, their golden child, to come over here and fight a guy who's good but not the best.
It's an interesting question. Who's the best at lightweight right now? Part of me wants to say BJ Penn. MMA is one of those sports where you lose. Certainly, it was not a dominating loss, but he lost. So it's hard to put him ahead of Frank Edgar. When you look at IOLE Melendez, I think it's open for question, and I think tomorrow's fight is going to play a big role in how the winner looks. What kind of fight is it? How good does the winner look in this particular fight? If one guy dominates, I think they're both quality fighters. So if IOLE comes out there and he really dominates Melendez, submits him, then I think all of a sudden you got to look. IOLE has got some good wins on his record. He's beaten Eddie Alvarez, some other guys, Joaquim Hansen. You beat those kind of guys. You have to be considered up there. By the same token, Gilbert Melendez has been an elite fighter, right on the verge of breaking into that top level. If he comes back and after his last couple performances, if he comes back and beats IOLE, then I think he's making a statement. And certainly, you can never count BJ Penn and Frank Edgar out. So I think at the top it's very crowded. There's a little bit of question about what's going on. I think that's good. You know what? Let's see the guys fight and be able to judge for ourselves.
I say, okay, gut feeling. What do you think happens? Who wins, Melendez or IOLE?
I'm going to go with Melendez. I just think, Melendez a little bit more athletic, a little bit more versatile. Doesn't want to get caught in a submission by any stretch of the imagination. He'd come home with his arm snapped in half. But I'm going to go with Gilbert Melendez in this one, Steve. I like him. I think he's a pretty solid fighter. I think he's got a pretty well-rounded game, very good condition. So I'm going to go with Gilbert Melendez.
All right. Great storyline, as you hinted. You touched on it. You teased with Mousasi and King Mo. Some people really have Mousasi highly regarded. Others are still, a little hesitant. How good do you think he is? And I know you talked to King Mo, and you've seen him fight, but you got a chance to talk to him the other day. He's an intriguing guy because he doesn't have a lot of fights. I mean, in a lot of ways, I'm not saying he's Lesnar, but he's got that kind of background where he's so good in certain areas and such a freakish athlete for 205. Maybe he is a transcendent type guy where he doesn't need 15 fights experience.
Well, the thing about King Mo that's hard to really rate him is, he hasn't fought anybody resembling a top contender. I mean, he hasn't been in with anybody that's really a very good quality light and heavyweight. He's fought a couple times at heavyweight too. Mark Kerr, So I mean that when we rate King Mo's chances of beating Gegard Mousasi, we're doing it mainly on the come. Kind of looking and saying, okay, he's got this great wrestling base, and he looks athletic. He's got these other things that he can do. Looks like he has heavy hands. So but King Mo, you don't know because he just hasn't been in there, and you don't have a track record of watching him in big fights. Mousasi got a little bit better. Certainly, I mean, I don't think his level of competition is overwhelming either, but he's got the better level of competition. I expect Mousasi to win the fight mainly because he's more experienced and does have a little bit better level of competition. But I by no means write Muhammad Lawal out. If Muhammad Lawal wins that fight, I am not going to be shocked. There are some, like in the main event, I think if Jake Shields wins it, I would be shocked. But I would not be shocked if Muhammad Lawal wins. I'm going to pick Mousasi in that one, but I give King Mo a shot because of the kind of wrestler he is and the kind of athlete he is.
And I think big news that came out today that Mousasi elected to re-sign with Strikeforce for 2 years. You surprised by that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he signed with them before, and he seemed to be, he had a chance coming from when he was with M1 on the to affliction, he had a chance to move over to the UFC, and Dana White, basically publicly courted him, and yet he ended up signing with Strikeforce. So obviously he feels comfortable with Scott Coker and comfortable with the direction they're going in, and I think that, so I'm not that surprised by it. I think big news and really good news for them, because certainly, Strikeforce can't afford to be losing guys of that ilk. I mean, this is a guy that I think, get him on CBS a couple times, and if he wins some big fights, that he could be a star. And so, you don't want to lose guys like that, especially to your top competitors. So, I think it's a big signing for Strikeforce, and I think it's just a sign, from Gegard Mousasi, respect for Scott Coker, and showing that he's comfortable with where they're going with his career.
All right, what happens in the main event? You said you'd be shocked if Shields won the fight. Why would you be shocked?
Well, not that I don't think Jake is a good fighter. I do, but I think Dan Henderson just is better in so many ways, and then he's much bigger. Dan could fight. Dan is a small light heavyweight, but he's a big middleweight. Mm-hmm. And Jake, I think, is a small middleweight and an average size welterweight. But I just think Dan Henderson, is just such a tough guy. He's such a hard hitter. He's got that great wrestling. He has really good submission defense. People were shocked when Anderson Silva submitted him. And that tells you the kind of respect that they have for his submission defense. And I just think that, he's going to be too big and too strong for Jake Shields, and I think he'll win by a stoppage.
What would you do with Henderson after this if he wins?
Personally, I think a fight that they should do is if Mousasi wins and Henderson wins, put them there. I know he's going to be your middleweight champion at that point, but, barring, any big fight that comes up unexpectedly at middleweight, I think that's the fight. Do you want to see him against Robbie Lawler at this point? I would rather get some new blood in there, but I think it'd be a real fun fight with Mousasi. Mousasi's a striker. Henderson obviously likes to strike. That would be a big fight, and Dan certainly likes belts. He had 2 belts in Pride, and he took shots at both belts in the UFC. Now he's going to go for the middleweight belt in Strikeforce. So that would be where I would go. Match if Mousasi wins, put him up against Dan Henderson. I think that would be a good fight.
Jake Shields wins or loses, to me it doesn't matter. Not for him, but where does he go? Because I think UFC will still be interested either way. Will Strikeforce be interested?
If he beats Dan Henderson, they better be interested because they're they have a lot invested in Dan Henderson. And if this guy comes up, with all the odds that are against him, and, I think Jake is a heck of a fighter, a heck of an athlete, but, he's given up a lot of size to Dan and a lot of power to Dan. If he somehow pulls this fight off, and he beat, I give him his credit, he beat a real hard puncher in Robbie Lawler. If he manages to pull this off, then I think he's going to be a pretty hot commodity. He would be a guy I think that the UFC would definitely be interested in, and I would think if he wins that fight, boy, Scott Coker, is going to work on a contract for him as well, and there'll be some bidding for Jake Shields.